All right, I'm on. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to make this presentation. I think we've had the idea for a while, and I thank Peter for making this possible with all his great knowledge of technology. Uh, the presentation has basically two parts. I'll be speaking first a little bit about myself. Usually when I go to Rotary clubs, this gives them an insight of who could be a good candidate if they were looking for the next Rotary World Peace Fellow to sponsor. So I talk a little bit about myself to give an introduction to the audience. And then the second part of the presentation really then discusses a little bit more in depth the Rotary World Peace Fellowship. The idea is that after today's presentation and after the introduction, which is the part one, you also have a little bit more knowledge of what the World Peace Fellowship entails. So with your permission, the President and all of you Rotarians participating or listening, we'll hold questions at the end. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in a small town in the northern coast of Honduras. I am one of three girls, and what you see there on to your right would be the picture of our wedding 3 years ago now. My husband and I married in Italy, and I'm very lucky to have a wonderful family back home and have started a new family now in Australia. So I grew up in Honduras, and educational opportunities there are not as available. So I went back to the United States, where I had been born, and I did the architectural program at University of Miami. And when I was there doing my education, I got involved in a program called the United Nations Model, which is a student simulation. It's a 2,000 student simulation at the heart of, well, we actually get the chance to be at the General Assembly in the United Nations. So for a whole week, we do complete simulation of all UN proceedings. I was a delegate to the UN development program. So when I was doing this program, my advisor for this program said to me, "Karla, I have a very wonderful opportunity for you. You should explore." He was a Rotarian, and he told me all about the Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar. So I was very lucky to be able to represent Rotary International District 6990 and go study an advanced program in urban design in Rotary District 1090, and I was afforded the opportunity to study at the Oxford Brookes University. And I did a whole year studies there. So my duties as a Rotary Ambassador Scholar took me to speak to many countries because I never said no. So my host club of Windsor St. George, which was around Windsor Castle in the UK, which is very exciting. All of their activities are surrounding the royal calendar. So they said to me, "Well, why don't you go and speak to our sister club in Germany at Goslar Nordhorst?" And I said, "Yes." And then during the break, between the first and second semester, I went to visit Egypt, and I spoke to Cairo Samalek Club. And while I was doing my issues project down in Ecuador, Guayaquil, I went to visit the Guayaquil Club of Guayas in Ecuador. And when it was time to research and document my thesis for my program, I went down back to Honduras and sort of study a number of communities affected by disaster. So what you're seeing on the screen now is a study, an urban regeneration study that I was conducting in Guayaquil, Ecuador. And that shows you what communities look like when there's a disaster like El Nino and 250,000 individuals get displaced and they have to flock their flooded areas and go into safety into the city. So what they do is they take over the edges of rivers, they build in very unsafe areas, and they destroy the natural environment. So one of the areas that I was actually working on was the center of Guayaquil. And what you see there is a very depressed area of Guayaquil. It was the historic center of Guayaquil, but yet by the time we went there, it had been taken over by gangs. So we had to walk into this area with armed guards. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to be safe. In fact, we were held at gunpoint at one point. But what you see there now is that after working with the locals and doing this project with the university, the concept that you see on the right became reality. The community got together and regenerated their community. So this was my year as an ambassadorial scholar. So you can imagine what I had seen. I had seen the world. I had visited so many Rotary clubs, and I had proof that ideas become reality. So when I came back to South Florida after that year in Europe and traveling, my eyes were open. I was so changed. And that's when I heard about the Rotary Peace Centers. That was then in 2001, a brand new opportunity or a brand new project that Rotary had. And I said, that is for me. I'm going to apply. I'll be the perfect candidate. I just know everything about Rotary and I want to do this. And sure, I did apply and I did not get it because it was so competitive. So the first time I applied, I did not get it. But Rotary did not send me a letter that said, do not apply again. And I took that as a sign that I should apply again. So I persisted, and yes, I gave it to me the second year. And the purpose of this scholarship is really Rotary's commitment to advance research in peace and conflict resolution. And I provide advanced international education opportunities. You see later in the presentation that it's really an international program. And a lot of the recipients are individuals from developing countries. So the funding for these programs, as I said, is a global effort, is an international program. The way it's done is that it's funded by every Rotarian's individual contribution to the district designated funds. And these funds go to help and fund not just the Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar, which is now changes defunct, not only the Rotary World Peace Fellowship, it goes to fund a number of projects and programs that are of educational nature. So it is truly everyone's contribution to the Rotary Foundation assists in funding these programs around the world. So being a global effort, it actually helps to allow those who are from developing countries to begin or to be able to fund candidates from their districts, because the funds do not come directly from each club. So that allows every district in the world to put forward a candidate each year. And this is really the reason why a lot of candidates come from developing countries, because being so even and being already from a pool of funds allows candidates that otherwise wouldn't be able to send a candidate over. That allows districts to fund each year a candidate. Now, the selection process obviously is quite tough. Even if every district in the world put forward a candidate, there are only a certain number of Peace Fellows selected each year. And they're distributed into two different programs. One is the more traditional 2-year program in one of the 7 centers across the world, which is a 15 to 24-month program with a 2 to 3 year applied field experience between the first and the second year. The second program is a 3-month program, and this is held in one center only, which is the University of Chulalongkorn in Thailand. So that program is shorter. That's designed for individuals who may already have a profession. They may already have experience in peace and conflict resolution, and they just want to do a course or a certificate. So where are these centers? The centers are very important because they're very prestigious in their own right. They are held within larger universities that are already quite established. So the first one is University of California in Berkeley, Duke University. Actually, the second center is held as a combination of two universities. University of Duke University and University of North Carolina, they each have 5 World Peace Fellows each year, and they do activities in combination. So following across the globe, we have a new center at the University Uppsala in Sweden. This was a university that recently got included in the group because the University of El Salvador in Argentina actually did not meet the expectations of Rotary, and it was then closed. Now, following up, we have the University of Bradford. They concentrate on security issues. Candidates or scholars that want to study security matters, or they go there. We have Christian University in Tokyo, the Center for Chulalongkorn, which is the center where the smaller program is held, and the University of Queensland. Now, I went to the University of Queensland, hence that's how I end up here in Australia. And the center, I picked it because not only they were going to allow me to do my electives in development, which is close to my original field of studies in architecture and urban design, but also because you must speak the language of the host country. And I had just come back from the UK, and the rules say also that I am not allowed to apply to a center within my country of origin, because the idea is that you want to promote the international and the cultivation of willingness across cultures. So the idea is that you cannot stay in your country of your origin. So ideally, I picked Australia, and I was very lucky to have picked that center. The program at University of Queensland is very thorough and tough. We have 2 years of intense training. We do everything from United Nations simulations. I actually did training in weapons of mass destruction. I did training in mediation. I did training in women's issues, development issues, governance. We had training in, obviously, theory of international relations. We did a lot of programs involving group study and interaction with all of our peers. So what you see on the screen is among the population, the regular population of the program, we had the 10 World Peace Fellows, and they came from all over the world. I'll give you a snippet of who they are in a minute. But who is a candidate? Who is Rotary looking to fulfill this role? Well, this is not a program for a person who just graduated out of high school. This is a program for someone who already has a calling life. Usually the average age is, I think, 32, I think. And they have to have an interest in peace and conflict resolution. They have to have leadership, hence they're being picked to represent a district across the world, in another part of the world. They have to have already a certain level of education, and they have to have a profession. When I did this, you had to speak 3 languages, but they have relaxed this requirement. You have to speak English and another language, as hopefully the one of your host country. You need to have at least a master's degree or 3 years of paid work experience. And you cannot be a Rotarian, a child or a grandchild of a Rotarian, because Rotary is not about helping themselves. And so what you see in front of you here is a snippet or a snapshot of who was a fellow in my intake, the 3rd intake. For instance, 59% were female. Citizens of low-income countries were favored up to 41% that year. We had a total of 65 scholars because they get distributed about 10 per each center. Now they have more because the Chulalongkorn Center takes up a good number of scholars. I think they go up to 100 nowadays. But you see the average age was 30. And the cross-section of who can do this program is very varied. There were students of various backgrounds. For instance, my fellows came from various countries, so got our first colleague from Israel. He was actually a theater major. And you will say, well, what does theater have to do with international relations and peace and conflict resolution? But he used to do theater camps for children in Palestine with Israeli kids so that they could learn to come together and do camps and resolve their problems and differences as children, so that perhaps when they grew up, they would be better individuals or learn how to solve their problems better. So the program also includes a applied field experience. So it means that between the first year and the second, you will do an internship yet in a third country. So imagine I went from the US to Australia, and in between the first and second year, I went to do my internship in India. Jude from the UK went to do his internship along with Larissa, who was from Finland. They went to Islamabad, Pakistan to work in refugee camps. Dao, who was from Thailand, went to do his internship in the Tibetan government in exile in India. Santosh was from India and stayed in Australia doing his internship with the Corruption Commission in Australia. And Michael, who was from Japan, went to Oslo to learn about elections observations. So can you imagine, after a year of intense training, you go yet to a second year, to a second country, and get these 3 months of amazing experience? How does the second year work with everybody coming back with amazing experiences, having been in the field, not only learning theoretical and empirical information, but actually being in the field and being observers of how peace and conflict resolution actually works? So the second year is actually thrilling. It's just people come back with such open minds and bringing all that experience together. So I was lucky that I was accepted to do my internship in a local grassroots NGO in the Coimbatore, in the Perur block, which is a rural block in the south of India. Coimbatore is referred to as the Manchester of India because of its former textile industrial sort of character. But I went to work with a grassroots program that actually empowered these communities, these rural communities, and they did programs for children. They work with local women to teach them computers or sewing or actual crafts and other training to help them be self-funded. They sponsor a lot of self-help groups, and I'll show you and discuss some of them in a minute. But mainly they try to do poverty alleviation and cultural programs to keep alive and really celebrate the local culture. So I had the chance to be to assist with my skills in various of these programs. So the one you see here is a self-help group, women that put together a very small, get a loan and put together a very small type of business, like a shoe stall in front of a temple. I was also doing a lot of surveying of communities or families in need, of those that will be the recipient later of some programs, local programs. They do Balachanti programs, which is that they provide daycare for mothers that work in the fields. And I was asked to talk to a lot of student groups. They love to ask me to talk to student groups, and invariably, which was a shock for me, they will ask me to sing. And so I had to become acquainted to a couple of songs to fulfill the request for singing. But I also participated in a lot of Rotarian programs and visits. It was a wonderful year. So when I came back to Australia to finish my degree, I had been, the recipient of so much knowledge and so many experiences. I cannot tell you what it feels to be part of a group like that. It's empowering. And after graduation, I had the opportunity to go and work in Southeast Asia. But by then, this program had really empowered me and opened opportunities for me, but also transformed my life in the sense that it gave me leadership abilities. It allowed me to have the confidence to work in multicultural environments. I had, I was almost fearless in a way, because in my first job, I had to go and do a project in Sri Lanka, and there had been at the time some bombings by the Tamil Tigers, and my boss couldn't go. He would chicken out, and I said, I don't mind. Send me. I know how to deal with these things. And so I remember my confidence had really soared, and the exposure of world issues had allowed me the opportunity to really expand my mind and and understand better how to apply my skills, even in the most difficult of situations. So that's what that program did for me. It really allowed me to understand and how to apply my calling, what I knew already how to do, but in a different environment with different skills. And today, I use those skills on my daily work, because I now work as an urban designer and as an architect in Sydney, but most of my projects are in areas that are derelict. Urban designers never get called to fix what's beautiful already. We get to be called to areas that need regeneration, that need empowerment. So I've had the pleasure to work in some Aboriginal communities that have some issues due to conflicts between the European heritage communities and the Aboriginal communities. And that is still present in many parts of the world. That is not exclusive to Australia, but it happens. And so those are the areas that I get the opportunity to work in. And here are some local projects. But since then, I've been very privileged to receive a Paul Harris Fellow from the hands of Bob Robert Scott, who was the Foundation Trustee Chair. And this was donated to me by Rotarians back in District 6990. And I also become Australian now, so I'm a dual or tri-citizen of the world, because I was also a citizen of Honduras, as you might know. And I continue to participate in local projects for Rotarians, including a local sort of a simulation of the United Nations proceedings at a high school level. This is probably the end. I have come to the end of my presentation. I've tried to keep it to 20 minutes. And all I want to say, and I always say at the end of my presentations, is that I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to do all these wonderful programs, and that I only hope that through my work, through the work that I do every day, that I continue to be a mirror of all the light that Rotary and new Rotarians have shown in my life. Thank you very much. So I think at this point, we'll go back to the live session, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you all may have. Thank you very much.